No way. Hold on a second, everybody. I have to go grab something really quick. I'm serious. This will be worth it. Just give me a moment. Oh, hold. Dangerous. Okay. Man, the stuff I get sent sometimes, fans send me stuff that it's like, I don't even know how I'm going to incorporate that into the videos, but every once in a while, I'm like, wait a second, this will be perfect to include. So, I'm glad I hung on to these. All right. So, last chapter of One Piece, chapter 1049. It was a banger for sure. The last scene of the chapter was the one I think that took the cake, but the rest of the chapter was really interesting too, because we found out, like, bits and pieces, not the whole story, but we found out a little bit about Kaido's backstory, okay? And Oda sort of, like, just gave us an abridged, sort of, like, flash forward, yeah, Kaido's memories are coded in flash-forwarded version of Kaido's past, from when he was a little kid growing up in the Vodka Kingdom, all the way up to him becoming the dragon duck god that lords over all of Wano that we know and love, of course. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, but I was sitting around after I did the review and after I edited everything, there was a moment where I was like, wait a second, Kaido's backstory here sounds very familiar. Like, I've heard this backstory before from somewhere in One Piece. Now, I'm somebody that's taken in a lot of One Piece media over the years, as you can imagine. Episodes, OVAs, you know, all the manga, all the bonus chapters and everything like that, all the supplemental material like the SBS and the Vivre cards and all that jazz. So, and also I've read a lot of other anime and manga. So I'm thinking like, oh, okay, maybe I'm just thinking of something from like another story and I'm mixing it up with One Piece. But something about Kaido's backstory just really just gave me this sense of deja vu that I couldn't exactly place until just now, okay? So, do you know which character? Kaido's backstory is actually remarkably similar to another character's backstory that's in the One Piece franchise. Not a canon character, mind you, but still in the One Piece franchise. All right, do you know who it is? I'm assuming you guessed. I don't know. I don't even know if you're watching me right now. It might just be like, oh yeah, Tekking's on his intro ramble moment of the video. I'm just going to go into the kitchen and make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well, I hope it was delicious. I hope you're sitting down right now eating that peanut butter and jelly sandwich and be like, man, this is a good sandwich. I'm like, I'm happy for you. I really am. I think I'm going to go make a PB&J after I'm done here. But no, the character I was thinking of was none other than Douglas Bullet from the last movie. We can keep this up for a while. How you guys doing? I'm doing pretty good. I went to a baseball game yesterday. All right, cool. All right, so the 14th One Piece movie, One Piece Stampede, came out a few years ago in 2019, and we had the big bad guy in the movie, Douglas Bullet, all right, known as the Demon Heir. Woo. And Douglas Bullet's backstory was that he was this really strong warrior from, like, a war-torn nation that, like, specialized in causing, you know, conflict and warfare with other nations. And Douglas Bullet, even at a young age, was, like, a super soldier, like, their strongest warrior that they had, okay? And he got stronger and stronger as the years went on, to the point where even the nation could not handle him. I think Douglas Bullet's a little bit different there, because I believe he's the one that actually, like, destroyed the home country that he came from, but still there's some parallels there between him and Kaido. Then after that, he runs off and becomes a pirate and joins up with this insanely powerful pirate crew, the Roger Pirates, right? Led by Goldie Roger. And so Douglas Bullet begins to fight Roger several times throughout the years, but no matter what, he can never win. No matter how strong he gets, he can never best the King of the Pirates. Now, I believe at this point in the story, it was a little ambiguous there for a while, but I don't think Bullet is canon. We didn't see him at all during the flashback with Odin. I guess you could say Bullet just left the crew before that, because it was explained that he wasn't, like, kicked out or anything. At some point, he just decided to leave Roger's crew, so he wasn't present at Laugh Tale. So that was explained in the movie, but even with that, I still don't think he's going to show up in the manga or anything like that, right? He wasn't a very interesting character to begin with. He was kind of hollow. It sort of just came down to like, I'm a big, strong, tough guy, and I don't need anybody to be the biggest and strongest tough guy. You know, not a very, very basic kind of character for a One Piece movie, but whatever. You take what you can get, right? Anyway, so, he becomes this insanely powerful warrior that, like, nobody can best. He gets thrown in level 6 of Impel Down. He breaks out, and then he tries to start his own little thing. And in this case, in the movie, it's the Pirate Fest, where he teams up with Buena Festa, I believe his name was. And they were just trying to basically, well, they were trying to steal Roger's treasure there. But I guess you could say trying to start their own little empire was also, like, you know, an addition to that, like a supplemental thing, right? So I'm thinking about this, and yeah, there's a little differences throughout, but overall, that's pretty much Kaido's backstory. Kaido was this insanely powerful warrior, even at the age of 10, growing up in the Vodka Kingdom, somewhere in the world. We don't know the location of the Vodka Kingdom. It's not the same place, because a lot of people were mentioning, hey, wasn't there, like, an allegory for Russia during Reverie? Like, we had King Beer the Sixth, right? And we had the princess, like, the Matryoshka dolls, like the nesting dolls that went into each other, right? And so, like, weren't those, like, supposed to be the characters that represent, like, Russia? And it's like, so no, that was the Roshuan Kingdom, which I believe was revealed to be in the North Blue or somewhere, or maybe the West Blue. I don't know. It was, like, revealed where that is. So it's not the Vodka Kingdom. That's somewhere else, okay? So anyway, Kaido was this really powerful, basically a super soldier. Everybody else in the army of the Vodka Kingdom was like, oh my god, Kaido is so powerful. Like, he's just walking in and out of explosions like a 90s action hero. You know, giant explosion. Is like, okay, the enemy numbers 40,000. Now we only have 10,000. So I'm thinking if, like tactically we figure this out, like we try to flank them from the side. Meanwhile, while the commander's trying to do this, Kaido is just walking straight and just like, I got this. And he's just walking straight into the battlefield, and the commander's like, Kaido, get back here. You're disobeying orders. And everyone's else like, no. Just seriously, just let him do it. Seriously, he's gonna wipe out one army today. It might as well be the enemy and not us. And he's like, okay. And then just boom, 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 and he just walks over. He's like, can I have dinner now? I'm done. You know, in the backstory, he was even like, you know, that's not good enough. You know, I wiped out an entire army, or I wiped out an entire platoon, explosions all over the place. And it's like, no, I still want more bloodshed. I still want more battle. You know what I mean? So that's how Kaido was growing up. And then eventually, he doesn't destroy his home nation. He basically gets sold off to the Marines by the king. Because I think the king was smart enough to know to be like, okay, this might end up going south for us really fast. You know, we have this insanely powerful kid that's just getting stronger and stronger, and he can, like, wipe out entire platoons by himself. So, if we don't do something about this, he could easily turn on us, and there's nothing we could do. So he decides to sell him off to the Marines. And the Marines, very much in the same way where Big Mom was about to be sold off to the Marines by Mother Caramel because she was so strong, the Marines are like, yeah, we'll accept Kaido. He's really powerful. We make him a Marine. He could be an admiral, maybe even a fleet admiral someday. There's another what-if scenario for you. I might do that now. I was thinking about doing a what-if scenario on if Big Mom joined the Marines, but now I could do both of them in the same video. I could do, like, what if Big Mom joined the Marines and what if Kaido joined the Marines? Like, you know, how that would change the story. You know, if that actually happened, because this would have been decades before Luffy was even born. So it would have been very interesting to, like, okay, instead of them running into Aokiji at Long Ring Longland, they run into Kaido at Long Ring Longland, and he's like, I don't know if I should defeat you here. No, Kaido would have just straight up killed them. Kaido would have been the fleet admiral instead of Sakazuki, which, remarkably similar kind of personalities there. Different objectives overall, but, like, Akainu is more of, like, absolute justice, wipe out all the pirates. And Kaido is just, like, absolute anarchy, you know, everybody fights each other, right? So it's sort of like, you can see comparisons there. I'm just saying, if Akainu and Kaido could put aside their differences, they could sit down and have a drink. They would probably have a lot more in common than they originally assumed, right? So anyway, though, that's for a future video, right? So he gets carted off to the Marines, but he escapes. And he escapes, like, dozens of times after this. We find out that Kaido pretty much only allows himself to get captured whenever he's hungry. And there's different translations here. One of them was, like, he allows himself to get captured whenever he's hungry so he can use the battleships as, like, a buffet, and then he just leaves again. Or another translation was basically like, whenever he is hungry, that's when he's captured. So maybe he's weakened, kind of like Don Krieg in the East Blue. Or, I'm sorry, Don Krieg in the East Blue. And so he was weakened, and they were able to kind of like, you know, capture him like he wasn't that strong. And then he ate, and then he got super buff again, because this is One Piece after all, where you can just drink milk and regenerate teeth. Okay, so, you know, I could picture Kaido like he didn't have any food for like weeks and weeks, and he's like on the island, and he's like, food, water, booze, atmosphere, you know, anything. And the Marines are like, that's Kaido, capture him. And they chain him up and they bring him on board, and it's like, we've got you now, but they have to feed him, you know. And so they feed him, and then he gets his strength back, and he just breaks out of the chains, and then he just busts out the hall, and he just leaves, right? Personally, I like the first one better, that he only allows himself to be captured when he is hungry, so he has all the cards in this situation. He can leave whenever he wants. Something else, in the review I mentioned, why didn't they use Sea Prism Stone on Kaido, because that's like the strongest substance ever. And this would have been a lot of years ago, okay? Like when Kaido was doing this whole thing with like the endless buffet with the Marines, this would have been when he was a teenager. So this would have been like this before he joined the Rocks crew, right? So we're talking like easily 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, like over 45 years ago, something like that. So because it was so far back, and because maybe this is even before Vegapunk was doing anything, and this was also before, you know, Kaido had a connection to Wano, and Orochi was taking over Wano and selling off the Sea Prism and stuff to the Marines. Maybe the Marines, they might have had some reserves of Sea Prism Stone, because it does occur naturally, but Wano is like the main place where you get that stuff. And Orochi, being, you know, the Shogun, was selling stuff off to the Cypher Pole, probably, you know, of just like, hey, okay, here's some Sea Prism, now you give me something that I want because I am Lord Orochi, you know, stuff like that. So it's possible. I like to think that Vegapunk might have been working for the government for a very long time, but even if Vegapunk was working for them, he still might have not had access to that Sea Prism. Here's a question for you. Could Vegapunk create artificial Sea Prism Stone? It's a question. If anybody could do it, it would be the greatest scientist in the world, Vegapunk. You know what I mean? So he's making artificial devil fruits. I wonder if he figured out a way to like artificially create Sea Prism Stone, like as a mineral or something. I don't know. Maybe he did. We'll find out when we find out more about Vegapunk, I guess, right? So he plays this game back and forth with the Marines for a number of years, and then he eventually ends up on the Hachinosu Island, or Full-a-Lead Island, as it is in the English version, okay? And he starts beating up a bunch of pirates there, and then Rox takes notice. Whitebeard is like, hey, Kaido, you want to be a pirate? Rox is looking for you. Now, we skip over the initial meetings. I'm sure that'll be revealed in Rox's backstory. Like, we'll actually get to see the meeting between Rox and Kaido and exactly what Rox told him. I really think Rox was like the role model for Kaido, because Kaido didn't really have a lot of those growing up. By the way, was anybody right on with Kaido's backstory? Did anyone like bet on like, oh, okay, this is what happened? Because I was coming up with a bunch of crazy stuff, like he was raised by ancient giants, like the last tribe of ancient giants in the world, and Kaido was raised. Hey, that might actually still be the thing, because we just know when he was 10 years old, he was in the Vodka Kingdom. He might have been born and raised somewhere else, and the giants were like, he's too powerful, and they dumped him off, and then the Vodka Kingdom picked him up and made him a soldier. Could have been something like that. We still don't know the whole story, right? We don't know anything about like Kaido's parents or anything like that. We at least got to see Big Mom's, birth parents. You know, they were just normal humans, but yeah. So, okay. When Kaido was growing up, though, the only thing he really had was himself, because nobody else was really getting close to him. It's not like Kaido had like a best friend in the Vodka Kingdom or anything. It really seemed like he was on his own for the most part. And whenever the king was talking about like, oh, you know, we have to raise an army to fight this country to get enough money to pay the heavenly tribute, because otherwise we're not going to be able to be part of the world government. And Kaido is like, you know, why are you listening to the nobles? You know, they're weak. You know, we're stronger. And, you know, they're like, hey, shut up, Kaido. You don't understand. Also, a very cruel picture, and we already understood this, but a very cruel look into how the world government runs things and how the Tenryubito just do not care, all right? All they care about is their money. They just care about getting their heavenly tribute. Every year, they have to fork that over in order to become a member of the world government or stay a member of the world government nations, okay? They do not care where you get that money. You can kill entire islands. You can wipe everybody out. Doesn't matter. As long as you fork over the money, then you're a part part of the world government. And so I imagine the Vodka Kingdom isn't even the only, war-crazy kingdom that was doing this kind of stuff. They had Kaido working for them, so they sort of had an edge or like an advantage. But Kaido is just like, why are we doing that, right? So probably the first group of people that Kaido ran across that he could even, say is comparable in terms of strength or is stronger than him is when he arrived at the Hachinosu. Obviously, Whitebeard would have been stronger than him at this point. Rocks would have been stronger. Even Big Mom would have been stronger. So that's like the first time in Kaido's life that he's running into people that is like, oh, I can't beat them. So that might, lend to his philosophy of, the powerful can take anything for themselves, Rocks' goal was to become the king of the entire world, for God's sake. And maybe that really spoke to Kaido. Like, holy crap, well, Whitebeard is stronger than me, and Rocks might even be stronger than Whitebeard. And if he was, then there's no debate why Kaido would have adopted that philosophy of well, Rocks is the strongest pirate on the entire Hachinosu. He's stronger than me. He's stronger than everybody else. So yeah, I guess it makes sense that he could become the king of the world because he's the strongest in the world, right? So I like to think there's a lot involving that, and there's still some more stuff we can learn about Kaido's past there, okay? So we skip over a lot of stuff involving God Valley. We don't really learn about anything involving the actual battle. We just have somebody bursting in a door and is like, Kaido, we need to go to God Valley instantly. Something happened. So actually that does give us some information because that lets us know that there was something going down at God Valley that was like an incident maybe even before the Rocks crew showed up, because that person busts through the door and was like, Kaido, we need to go to God Valley now. So maybe it was a situation where maybe Rocks went to God Valley by himself to launch an all-out attack on the world nobles. And then he was slaughtering a bunch of the nobles and then maybe ripping dragons apart or whatever. And then the Marines found out about that and they arrived. And then the pirates back at Hachinosu who were part of Rocks' crew, because they weren't really much of a crew, learned about it and they all went. The battle at God Valley could have lasted days or weeks, you know what I mean? It might be Rocks led the initial charge by himself, and then as he was slaughtering all these nobles, then the Marines got involved, and then the Rocks crew showed up, and then Roger showed up. This could have been a course of days and days this battle occurred, right? So we'll learn more about that as we go, right? And so after the events of God Valley, obviously the Rocks crew is no more. Kaido leaves the Hachinosu to start his own crew. Well, I guess he gets captured one more time at some point. He gets captured after God Valley. So at God Valley, he gets the Ua Ua no Mi from Big Mom, but he gets captured later and gets thrown in Punk Hazard to be experimented on in the same location, the same time that King is there. And so they leave together and then they form the crew, okay? And this was about 30 years ago or so. And we know this because 28 years ago is when Higurashi, I keep saying Higurashi. I think I'm confusing Inuarashi with Higurashi, because for the longest time I would pronounce Inuarashi as just Inurashi, but Higurashi is not Higurashi, it's Higurashi. Okay, we all on the same page now? Okay, that's a tongue twister for you. So Higurashi meets Kaido on his ship, I guess, his first pirate ship that he ever had for the Beast Pirates, okay? And King is there, and maybe Queen, and a few other subordinates, but his crew is not really that big yet, okay? And so Higurashi is like, hey, it's been 10 years since God Valley now. This would make Kaido 31 years old, same year that Yamato was born. And it's just like, hey, I have a proposition for you. Come to Wano. There's this guy, Orochi. You really need to meet him. You can work together to make your own country, your own pirate paradise, right? Where might makes right. And Kaido's like, I couldn't agree with you more. Let's do that, right? So around 28 years ago is when Kaido first appeared as a dragon god over Wano, terrified the citizens. Sukiyaki was on his deathbed. He probably died shortly thereafter because of Orochi's dealings, of his poisonings. Then you also have... Oh, by the way, wow. I just realized you could kind of have a parallel there to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, except in this case, Dio is played by Orochi. I am Lord Orochi, the world of Odin! It's okay. I don't know why, just the poisoning aspect of, a father figure, and then the death, and then trying to, become the ruler of everything, and then you gain a supernatural power. Yeah, there's some JoJo references there. Sure, why not? You thought it was me! It was actually me! Okay, anyway, alright, fine, whatever. Okay, so, Kaido takes over the island. Orochi's there while Odin is away. Odin comes back, and at that point, that syncs up with Odin's flashback, so everything is sort of connected from that point onward, where, you know, Odin dances in the streets and then eventually fights Kaido. He loses because of Higurashi, and then Kaido kills her, which once again mentions, like, hey, that's interesting that Higurashi was actually the one to sort of, like, you know, point Kaido in the direction of Wano to begin with and kind of set up this whole plan. Higurashi might have also worked on the Rock's crew, from what we understand. And so that might have, like, led, like, Kaido and Higurashi might have actually had, like, you know, like, they worked together. They fought together up until that point, all right? And so that makes it even more powerful when Kaido kills her, because, you know, she wasn't just like some random person that he slaughters. It's like, no, this is somebody that actually I have quite a bit to actually thank for, because if it wasn't for Higurashi, then Kaido would have never went to Wano, and this plan that he had would have never happened. He would have went somewhere else and done something completely different, right? And still kills her for after what she did during the fight between him and Odin, okay? So we know about what happens after that point, you know, and everything, like the execution of Odin, the Hour of Legends, so I'm not going to go into it there. But yeah, the life of Kaido is really fascinating. So to recap, a few of the gaps that we still need to find out about. We need to learn about Kaido's, like, birth, like exactly what happened there, okay? Because, yes, he clearly has ancient giant blood in him, but as we saw with Lin, as we saw with Big Mom in her younger days, her parents seemed like normal humans, okay? But Big Mom clearly has, like, the blood of a giant or something inside of her to make her that powerful, all right? So it might be a thing like the bloodline lays dormant for a while. It's sort of like a recessive gene or like a recessive trait, and it might skip a few generations, and then eventually that happens, okay? But with Kaido and with Yamato, you know, they both have the horns, so it makes me think that Kaido might have been, like, you know, his parents might have also been, like, part ancient giant, and maybe they abandoned him or something, or maybe his parents were killed by the Marines, and he ended up floating to the Vodka Kingdom or something, and then, you know, what happened with that. So we need to still learn about that. I would also like to know a little bit about just Kaido arriving at the Hachinosu. He was 15 when that happened. He arrived there, his, you know, conversations, like meeting Whitebeard for the first time, meeting Captain John for the first time, meeting Wang Shi for the first time, meeting Rocks, of course, for the first time would be the focus there. A little bit more about Kaido and Big Mom's relationship. We knew, like, basically, like, Big Mom viewed herself as, like, a big sister to him, so maybe that could be expanded upon a little bit there. And then, of course, God Valley, which God Valley is going to be, like, its whole flashback. I honestly think God Valley, whenever we get Roger's full backstory, because we had Odin's, which included Roger, but it wasn't the main focus. Whenever we get Goldie Roger's flashback, like we get to see Roger in his younger days, and then when he first met Rayleigh, that'll be expanded upon a little bit, and then him traveling the Grand Line for the first time, you know, reaching Lodestar Island, eventually Laugh Tale, when everything is shown there, that is, I think, when we're going to see God Valley. Or Garp. Garp could work, too, because Garp was also present, okay? So maybe, yeah, that's another thing, too. Maybe at some point we'll just get, like, would you be upset at all if after Wano we decided to cut over to Garp, and then Oda decides, like, in order to kick off this final saga, we're going to see Garp's flashback? I wouldn't be upset with that. I didn't expect that coming. I didn't think that was going to happen next after Wano. But you know what? I'd be fine with that. I'd be like, yeah, sure, Garp's backstory. All right, so, and that would actually make a lot of sense because Garp is connected to so many things. We would learn a little bit about Dragon. We would learn a little bit about God Valley, more about Roger, more about Luffy's parents, Luffy's mom. We'd learn a little bit more about the Marines in general. That would actually be the perfect way to set up the final saga. It kicks off with Garp's flashback. Like, Garp is just hanging out, eating rice crackers or whatever, drinking tea, and he's like, this takes me back to the time when I... Because he's, like, narcoleptic, like Ace, so he, like, falls asleep at random points, which is weird because him and Ace aren't even related, but he has a touch of the narcolepsy. And so, yeah, Garp just immediately falls asleep while eating a rice cracker, and then we just see, like, a 3-chapter flashback of his past and stuff. That would actually be really cool. All right, well, anyway... what did you think about Kaido's flashback so far, the stuff we got? I really liked it. I think we learned enough to, like, theorize about stuff in the future. Maybe this might not be it, because I saw some people commenting, like, Kaido might not even be gone now. He might get back up. And I'm like, I think the fight is over right now. But if it's not, like... I guess we'll see what happens next. Also, something else, because those last few chapters, last few panels of the last chapter, I even admitted in the review, like, I didn't really, like, I had to look at them a few times to really even understand what happened. Like, I know Luffy punched him, and then the punch finally connected, and he got hit. But I was like, what? Like, the last panel just didn't make any sense to me. So I originally thought Kaido, inside of this magma shell, Luffy punches him so hard it knocks him out of the magma shell, and then he just hits the ground. That is not what happened. Here is what actually happened so far, according to, like, everybody, you know, commenting it and me looking at the panel again, and I'm like, oh my god. So if you still don't understand, here's what happened. Luffy, the punch finally connected, hit Kaido so damn hard, it blasted him to the surface of mainland Wano, but he didn't stop there. Kaido hit the ground so hard, he got pummeled into the dirt in the perfect shape of a dragon, right? So he got punched, he's falling out of the sky in the shape of a spiral, then he hits the ground, and then he goes, no! Like, it's like a Looney Tunes character, like when Wile E. Coyote falls off the cliff and he hits the ground, and it's a perfect Wile E. Coyote-shaped hole in the ground for like a mile deep, and then he crawls out and he's got the cuckoo birds over his head. He's like, cuckoo, cuckoo. Why did the coyote want to catch the Roadrunner? To eat it, right? Yeah, I guess. Man, I just feel bad for the coyote. I just want the coyote to win every once in a while, you know what I mean? Damn. Anyway, so he hits the ground, and that's what happened, all right? He just gets dug into the ground in the perfect shape of a dragon. So, given Luffy's Gear 5th ability with, like, the Toon Force-esque inspiration, that makes sense to me. I would go ahead with that. Okay, so there you go, right? All right. Well, anyway, I just want to bring that up because that's something I missed. But anyway, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Now let's go on to the next installment of Horse Facts. I do have intros. I haven't downloaded any of the intros, but I have some. I'll use an intro. Okay, thank you to this person for the intro. I'll leave links below to everything.
Tekking talks about horses.
All right, so today we're talking about the different types of horse breeds, okay? Well, so there's different types of horse breeds, but very much like Devil Fruit powers in One Piece, they are divided into 3 different categories. Logia horses that have the power to manipulate the elements. Zone horses that have the power to turn into other horses. It's not a very useful power, but they have it. And Paramecia horses that have the power to just kind of do whatever. Okay, no. So the 3 types of horses are cold-blooded horses, hot-blooded horses, and warm-blooded horses. Now, this doesn't actually, you know, reference, like, all horses are warm-blooded. You know, there's no such thing as, like, a cold-blooded horse, like a snake or like a turtle or something like that, okay? So it doesn't refer to that. It refers more to their tasks that they've, like, historically done throughout history, as well as their overall temperament, okay? So when you're talking about a cold-blooded horse, those are draft horses. Those are the big, beefy horses that don't skip leg day. Those are the ones I always see at the county fair. If you grow up in the country like I do, you've been to a county fair, you see those big, giant draft horses that can, like, carry giant carts around. Cart horses is another term for them. Work horses, that's where that term comes from, okay? And so they're the ones that way back in the day, before modern machinery was invented, or even before, like, steam-powered machinery to dig fields, this was your horsepower. Horsepower literally comes from horses, okay? This was the peak of human farming technology and raw power for thousands of years, until something steam-powered was developed, probably, right? It was all the horses, all right? So they were used back in the day to till the fields with farm machinery, farm implements, and stuff like that, all right? And cold-blooded also refers, they have an overall very, very cold, very okay temperament, okay? They're not very, I'm trying to think of the best term here. I'm blanking on the term. Not very hostile, I guess. They're very soothing, I suppose. Okay, that's the cold-blooded horses. Then we have the hot-blooded horses. Now, the hot-blooded horses, you can imagine, have a little bit more of a hot sort of temperament, okay? And so they might be a little bit more violent, difficult to rein in and stuff like that, but they're also very insanely good runners, okay? So, you know, putting a light saddle on them and running really fast. So, like, the Arabian breed of horses would be a hot-blooded horse, okay? So something way more adept to, like, running and stuff. And then there's the warm-blooded horses, which are crossbreeds of the cold and the hot-blooded horses that you get, like a horse that might be very good for like certain things like dressage and other things, you know, like certain like equestrian sports where you might want to have a little bit of like the hardiness and the size of a draft horse, but also maybe more of like the streamlined and like the running power of a hot-blooded horse. Okay, so something of that nature, crossbreed to make a warm-blooded horse. Okay, so there we go. I think horse facts are going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be great. Okay, they already have different categories. This is awesome. Okay, well, thanks for watching the video, everybody. This will be Tekking signing out. Later, everyone.